This Week in America, Coast to Coast. Thank you for joining us on the program. In the new book, Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love, Barry Bauerschlag, the author, explores the treasured traditions of Texas A&M, the values they transmit, and the timeless wisdom they hold in common with the Christian faith. After serving as a Corps of Kinder and Ross volunteer, Barry graduated as a distinguished student in mechanical engineering. He was commissioned as an officer and married his Aggieland sweetheart, Donna. He received his Master of Theology degree from Perkins School of Theology at SMU, where he also did his doctoral studies. His pastoral ministries extended all over Texas for over 4 decades. He serves as a volunteer chaplain to many student athletes and Aggie teams. The author of the book, Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love, Barry Bauerschlag, our guest on the program. Barry, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you.
This is a fascinating book. I've heard a lot over the years about this Aggie Spirit and know a little bit about it. This really defines exactly what this is. And this is interesting in learning your background. You literally were born with the Texas A&M silver spoon in your mouth. Talk about that. You were born into an Aggie family, and you're in one now.
Not only was my dad there playing football, but my mother's brother played. He was the guitarist in the Aggie orchestra, and I kind of caught the Aggie spirit that way.
Yeah, at a very early age, and I mentioned you've got a number of family members that are there. As someone who has followed and lived by this code, the Aggie spirit, over the years, talk about how the book came about, how you decided, okay, I really want to write about this and share this. And it's not just for people that maybe are Texas natives or graduates of A&M. Boy, what you have in the book are principles we all should live by.
Well, it is a school that makes an impact in our country and in the world through the values that its graduates carry with them. And I started my book with, I was probably pre-verbally marooned with my dad having played football. That silver spoon that you were talking about was, with my initials on it, was a gift from the Aggie football team. They cared for me. It was a little different. It's like a military retreat in a way. It was an all-male school and with a lot of spirit. There was not a lot to do, but the YMCA was the kind of the focal point of the social life, and the strength of the spiritual values kind of came through. The students that my dad came to A&M with were highly populated with veterans from World War II. So there's a very strong spirit of patriotism and willingness to serve your country. And as the Bible says, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his friends. So I was inspired by that kind of loyalty and love, and it's all incorporated in the traditions. Not very many people understood those kind of traditions. Often people look askance at things that are different, and so I wanted to explain those. I had a phenomenology of religion professor at SMU that asked me to write a term paper about the religion of Texas A&M. We studied religion from a standpoint where you look at what are the ultimate concerns and what are the rituals that communicate the values. And so I thought about it. I decided to work in my term paper on the personal spiritual growth and small group movement. And so I never did really get around to writing about that, but it kind of haunted me, and I came back and I decided to write this book. We have a large student population, which is no longer military. They're very fine young people. The cost of tuition has gone up considerably, and so many of them have to work and are very busy. The academic requirements are even higher, and so it's difficult or challenging for them to participate in as many of the traditions as we used to have. We no longer build the bonfire on campus, but off campus, and only a few participate in that. So those are examples of ways in which it would be easy for the traditions to kind of become lost somewhat of the meanings of those traditions. As a United Methodist pastor, I tried to help my congregation appreciate the meaning of the Christian traditions that we observe. So often they would participate in them, but not really understand what they were about. So anyway, my book is an attempt to help these young people and Aggies of all ages to really appreciate what the values are behind the traditions.
You do an excellent job in doing that, and in doing so, as I say, you don't have to be a graduate of A&M to understand the values you're talking about. And in the book, Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love, you talk about becoming an Aggie is much more than just academic and practical. You talk about it being spiritual, moral, theological as well. And the lessons you take away from there, these are lifelong lessons, aren't they? I mean, you graduated a few years ago, and you're still living by the Aggie spirit.
Yes, they're intended to help you with character and leadership when you go out into the world, and to be able to offer a presence that other people look up to, trust, and give responsibility to, and along with the responsibilities, the privileges that come with leadership. But it has a long history of developing that kind of leadership and those kind of values, and the traditions play a key role in that. As a pastor, as an ordained minister, I studied the relationship and participated in the relationship between practicing rituals and traditions and trying to learn from them the values. So we hope that people will, in reading the book, grow in their deeper understanding and appreciation of these values and incorporate them in their own personal traditions and routines, disciplines, things like this, and good habits, and also in their family life. I guess in addition to their position of leadership, whatever kind of vocation, work that they have.
The book is called Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love. The author is Barry Bauerschlag, and that's Bauerschlag. The website is very simple, aggiespirit101.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly to the website. We've done the spelling for you. We will take you right to the website, so you don't have to worry about that. Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love. You talked about the 12th man inspiration. Talk a little bit about that and how, boy, the 12th man concept, that's something we all can grab a hold of and benefit from. Well,
in pre-World War II days, before we had some of the separation between a state school and spiritual kinds of expression, they had coaches which helped identify the importance of being there and being willing to help out, being willing to offer yourself sacrificially. We had a doctoral student who was on the basketball team and not really suited up for a game. There were many football players getting injured. He at halftime, he found out how many were getting injured. The coach asked if he'd be willing to suit up. He did. He stood by on the sidelines ready to come in. He never did have to, but that's where the tradition of the 12th man began, and it became an ideal for all Aggies to be there. Students during football games stand during the entire football game I get choked up talking about it, as a sign of their willingness to support the team. So I grew up with those kind of traditions. We don't boo at our players. We don't leave before the end of the game. Ideally, we believe that we don't ever lose because we don't quit. We just run out of time sometimes.
Yeah, we need a little more time on the clock, and then we can take care of this. And the thing that is so impressive is for you and tens of thousands of, probably hundreds of thousands of people, these are not just traditions that we sort of slip into on Saturday afternoon or whenever the Aggies are playing football. This has become a way of life for you. And the book, once again, is Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love. Relish is something that you've taken, and it's a very important word to remember. Talk about your spelling of that word and the keys that come out of that.
Well, my sons growing up with my pastoral leadership knew that it was important to be clear about your vision of who you are and what your organization is about. And so both of them in their student leadership tried to help their particular organizations. My oldest son was president of the student body in A&M Medical School, and he helped them identify 3 words: excellence, leadership, and service. In writing my book, I was in conversation with the 12th Man Foundation and the Association of Former Students, and I think perhaps encouraged them to identify the core values that are really central to Texas A&M. They came up with an acronym, RELLIS, respect, excellence, loyalty, leadership, integrity, and service. They call it selfless service. I prefer unselfish service. I talk about that in my book. But it is indeed a service which is not self-seeking. In my book, I added some other values or expanded on those values. The word honor to me was a very important word in the life at A&M, and it takes respect a step farther. Talk about how honor is both a noun and a verb. Like many words in English, it has a couple of different meanings. And so we are to not only embrace an honorable lifestyle, but we are to be a community that honors each other, that treats each other that values each other. All lives matter. And that kind of honor is really important. The second one is the howdy tradition, which I said in my book corresponds to Christian hospitality and learning to welcome people, to get to know them, to treat them with the kind of congeniality and cordiality that really helps them to feel comfortable, to look for what you have in common and expand on that common ground is an important part of the hospitality that we have at A&M, and the howdy is a word that represents that. The third H was hard work, and Aggies know how to have fun, but they also know that it's important to work hard to merit their accomplishments. You don't just sit back and wait for God to do it for you. You bring it, whether it's on the field or in the classroom or in your workplace. So I comment in my book that those 3 H's added to the RELLIS acronym give you relish and add even more excitement and flavor to your values.
That's part of the new book, Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love. Barry Bauerschlag, our guest on the program. Time going by way too quickly, and I knew this was going to be the case. Talk about the book cover and the video version of this, which you'll find on YouTube, or go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and click on videos, and you will see this. You've got the Greater Love symbol there, the Greater Love logo. Talk about that, and you... In the course of the book, we'll go through some of the symbols that are important. But Greater Love, talk about that on the cover of the book.
Well, the artwork was painted by a well-known artist here in Aggieland, Benjamin Knox. I appreciated him doing that. But it was one that I designed and began the design over 30 years ago. As a young pastor, and really throughout my life, I led a lot of retreats. I would develop curriculum and assemble a staff, things like that. Often wrote a song. In this particular case, the theme for the camp was the power of love, and I came upon the symbol of the heart with a Venn diagram, the curvatures of the heart, kind of continuing and forming an area of commonness, which also formed a fish. and the fish is, for most Christians, a well-known symbol of Christ. The Greek word for fish, ichthys, means Jesus Christ, God's Son and Savior. Inside the fish, I put a cross because I wanted to represent not only this Christ in my heart, but the cross in Christ. In the book, talking about greater love, the cross represents the depth of God's greater love, and the Alpha and Omega on each side represents the breadth of God's love from the beginning to the end. It looks a little bit, the Omega looks a little bit like an M, so again, it's what the Christian faith has in common with the traditions there at A&M. My uncle told me before he died that he actually was the one. He was an architectural student, and in hitchhiking, he wanted to make sure people knew he was an Aggie. The block T was the symbol in the early 50s of A&M. There was no A and M on either side, but he wanted people to be sure that they knew he was an Aggie, and so he was an architectural student, and he put an A and an M on each side of the T, and he said it started catching on, and I wish I had a penny or a nickel or whatever for every time that's been used. It's certainly copyrighted now, but that's kind of a symbol of what those two things have in common. The flames on each side of the fish represent the fire and fight, the purpose and passion that is a gift from God when we have that greater love in our heart, and it empowers us to overcome the challenges that we have and the obstacles that often try to get in our way for doing God's will.
What the book we're talking about, in just a couple minutes left in the program, Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love, Barry Bauerschlag, our guest on the program. What has this experience been like? We've talked several times before doing the program, and in doing the program, I sense your passion. You've been able to go back and touch Aggie graduates like yourself, sort of rekindle that Aggie spirit, introducing it possibly to a younger generation, maybe who are students at A&M, but sort of lost sight about the traditions over the course of the years and how important rituals and traditions are. And you mentioned how things are very busy on campus now. Students need to have 2 or 3 different jobs to be able to make the tuition payments, that type of thing. What has this been like, bringing this message of Aggie spirit to the world, especially in Aggieland?
Well, it's very exciting to feel the fire of enthusiasm catch
Yes.
from one another. Much different than the wildfires that we have in various parts of our country because of the drought conditions and the heat. But when I share with people and people share with each other their love for God, their love for Christ, and their love for A&M. And these traditions and how it is helping them, they get a deeper insight and appreciation, and it opens the door for Christ to bring in this kind of energy. Jesus is always giving just 2 things: truth and grace, and we need both of those things in order to succeed. The energy is, his greater love. And so learning how to plug in our soul phone by opening up our hearts to that greater love, and then having the courage also to open up our minds to the wisdom of his word and the guidance of his spirit are basically what the book is about. It's not a simplistic book, but I try to simplify the faith so that it will become that my book will be kind of a standard handbook for Christians and for Aggies. And as they share it in a small group setting, there are 8 chapters with questions at the end of each chapter. It's written so that it can be used in a variety of small group settings, from a family group to an athletic team to a church Sunday school class, a lot of different ways. That kind of energy gets generated as people get honest and caring with each other and pray for each other and seek to grow in love. So it's an exciting experience for me with my first book to deal with this.
Well, you've done an excellent job. It's a very powerful book. It's called Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love. The author, our guest in the program, Barry Bauerschlag, and that's Bauerschlag. Website is very simple, aggiespirit101.com. Book is available at all the usual places, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can link on directly to Barry's website, aggiespirit101.com, by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Barry, an excellent job with the book. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. It's great talking with you today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
You are listening to This Week in America, a website, thisweekinamerica.us. Information there on Barry and his book, Aggie Spirit 101, Greater Love. Just go to the website, check out all the information there, and we'll be back with today's program. More after these messages.